Welcome to Leadership in Shorts. Leadership is vast, hundreds of models and best practices, and yet we respect and admire only a few leaders. There's been a long debate about whether leadership is a science or an art. But all said and done, it remains something expansive and vast, and somehow always a journey of self and growth. Hi, I'm Mukta. I'm a leadership development and organizational development consultant, and I work out of Pune. I have with me Soham Sapnis, who's an entrepreneur and a podcaster, and we are at Zankar Studio, Pune. This podcast series talks about various aspects of leadership, its elements, its success stories, what has worked for some leaders, what did not work, best practices, and the leadership journey itself. Leadership is as much a journey outside us as it is inside us. And therefore, many parts of this series will focus on self, working on oneself. As much as it focuses on society at large, it focuses on our deep insides. It is our insides that need refreshing, deepening, and adaptation to the ever-changing dynamics of our environment. The series talks about the leader as a human being and his or her evolution and his journey.
Today we talk about International Women's Day and what it means to us. This episode is a peep into androgynous leadership, the manifestation of women's leadership and creating of culture in the current organizational context. And that's why we call this episode My Doll and My Sword.
We'll attempt to reach you every fortnight with new episodes and nuggets on leadership that might urge you to think about yourselves, your own leadership styles, and how you impact those around you.
For more, do visit Mukta's blog at muktakamplikar.com and various LinkedIn articles on her LinkedIn profile. You can also follow her page on Facebook, which is called as Kamplikar Mukta. So let's dive into some questions. Hi Mukta.
Hi Soham.
You started with academics, moved to the corporate world, and now you are an entrepreneur and an artist. You worked up the ranks in corporate world and have worked with a lot of women leaders and have been a coach and mentor to them. How do you feel about this day that we call International Women's Day?
Well, Soham, International Women's Day, yes, we're all excited about Women's Day today. It's definitely a day to be excited, and given our patriarchal history, most definitely so. In my journey, as you rightly said, from my school to my college, my academic career, my corporate career, and now my journey as a passionate entrepreneur, I've had many interesting experiences with men and women that I'm happy to share with you today. So today marks women's rights and celebration of her achievements. It is always a step towards parity and equity. So they celebrated with themes, and this year the theme seems to be digital, innovation and technology for gender equality. We know the world is going digital, but even AI devices like Alexa have gender. And there are implications of that.
Yes, absolutely. But now this is interesting. You said Alexa has a gender. Now what do you mean when you say AI has gender too?
So when I say gender is a social construct. It's indeed very important to recognize that there are various biases and stereotypes that are associated with gender and how they manifest in very small little experiences we have every day. So for example, when somebody just makes a casual remark that it must be a woman driver when they see a car wobbling or slowing down on the road. Or when a woman says, look, I'm not too good at my financial planning, and my husband takes care of that. Or when she, takes a more secondary role while the man picks up primary roles during planning an event or something. Yeah. So gender bias is manifesting itself when all this is happening, right? And the inequality that women have suffered very unconsciously over a period of time is creeping when such little things happen. Sometimes we notice the bias and sometimes we don't even notice it.
Right.
So when I say that Alexa is gendered or AI is gendered, I'm referring to an article that I had written much earlier about why Alexa is a woman's voice. Yeah, the answer to that that Amazon had was that they surveyed many people before they launched Alexa, and then they found that people would want a woman's voice as an assistant, and so Alexa was first created as a woman's voice. And then I would ask, why? Why can a man not play a facilitating or an assisting role? And I'd ask, why is it that Alex or Alexander can't help me? So probably they saw it too later, and then they chose a voice on Alexa, which could also be a male voice. Then I saw Siri that had a male and a female voice. Then Google Maps has a male and a female voice. So I think there's some awareness that's coming in, and people are now making their own choices. So that also brings me to the concept of the masculine and the feminine. What do we consider as masculine and what do we consider as feminine? I don't mean a physical man or a physical woman. I mean the characteristics that we associate with a man and those that we associate with a woman.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Can you say some more about masculine and feminine? And particularly about what does it mean in the current corporate context? And since we talk so much about leadership, how does it impact one's leadership?
That's a great question, Soham. So when I say masculine, I talk about characteristics like aggression, violence, physical strength, competition, goal orientation, risk-taking, determination. So these are some of the characteristics like assertiveness, discipline. We associate these traits with masculinity. As against compassion, receptivity, sensitivity, empathy, creativity, vulnerability, inclusion. These are the characteristics that we kind of associate with the feminine. And so practically, when a woman is assertive, she is displaying a characteristic that is not associated with her gender. And so people call her aggressive. Or she's excluded in various ways. Loads of stuff happens in organizations. So when she states her viewpoint, she is called dominating, she's called argumentative, because it's not traditionally acceptable to an inherently patriarchal society.
Right.
And the corporate world, again, is a microcosm of what our society in general is made up of. You'd know that. So similarly, even for a man, it's unfair for a man who displays sensitivity to be called a sissy.
Right.
Or they call him a pansy. So this is how we label people when they display something that's not associated with their gender socially. Yeah? Which is why for women to grow in patriarchal organizations, they need to start trying to become like men. And then they get hated for it. So it's like it's so unfair. My point is, can we stop making men out of women in organizations and actually respect the feminine qualities? Have we promoted somebody, for example, for being sensitive or collaborative or, empathic? We promote people for getting stuff done. We promote people for decision making or for assertiveness. Yeah. So do we really value the feminine? So to me, Women's Day is about valuing what is feminine and not so much about a physical woman. So I think it's a different perspective.
Right.
So can we reward some of these characteristics even when men bring these to the table? So for example, if a man is empathic, can we reward him for that in an organization? Can we respect and reward some of these characteristics and celebrate those and make them a part of your culture? Make them a part of organization culture?
Yes. Nice, Mukta. This is a very good food for thought. I think this is the right time for a very interesting segue that I would want to take. I read your article about Shiva where you speak about androgyny in leadership. Can you speak more about Ardhanareshwara, the mythological tale and its implication for leadership?
Oh, wow, that's a very interesting question. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in some of these myths. And as the myth goes, when some of the Ganas, Nandi, wanted to worship and offer pradakshina only to Shiva and not to Shakti or Parvati, Shiva invited the goddess to sit on his lap and fused the two of them together, giving a very important and potent message. I use it for leadership development even today. Like there are these elements of Shiva and Shakti that are inseparable. They are immensely powerful only when they are together. So the concept of androgyny and the dance of the masculine and feminine has to be explored with curiosity and attention and in its togetherness.
Interesting.
So when I say Ardhanari, it is to be seen in perspective and not misunderstood.
Right.
So particularly when people come across a man who demonstrates sensitivity, like I said earlier, gender roles get mixed up for them. And then they would judge them, they would label them, or when they label a woman as aggressive, like I said earlier, it's basically a mixing of gender roles. So I feel that a man can display feminine characteristics when it's needed, and a woman can demonstrate masculine characteristics when it's needed in the organization. So it's about that flexibility. And androgynous leadership, in my view, is about that flexibility that you display when you are actually using some of the characteristics associated with the other gender in your own leadership style. So, for example, in an organization, when assertion is required, a woman may use assertion because she is actually evoking her masculine side. Whereas if there's a situation where empathy is required, maybe a man could evoke his feminine and be empathic. Yeah. So that's about the Ardhanari, where we're saying that these are the characteristics that are associated with the masculine and feminine, and we must use them flexibly.
Yes. Mukta, it sounds very interesting, and it is also easy when I hear this from you. Now my question is, how do we tackle this type of situations in the modern world, both in corporate as well as in the society?
Yeah, so I think to answer your question, I'll share an experience with a multinational company that I worked for, and the leaders there used to talk about what we call as the bent knife theory. Where they would say that because of patriarchy, a lot of male hiring has been done, and it's a male-dominated kind of a world. So let me hire a lot of freshers and let them all be women. So we bend the knife so much in the other direction that we hire a lot of women from colleges and bring them into the leadership pipeline. So this is a very physical a method of getting more women in the workforce, and then developing them, and then coaching them, and then growing women leaders at the top. So yes, there are some of these efforts that are on. But in my view, it's about mindset. We need to inculcate the difference between the masculine and feminine characteristics, and then probably look at that flexibility that I was talking about earlier, and educate people on using their masculine and feminine sides as and when they're required. Yeah, encouraging people to be demonstrating, facilitating sensitivity, collaborativeness, consensus orientation. So these are the aspects that people need education on. And it's men and women both. So you can't say that I'm going to educate all the women and make them grow. You need to also create an environment around them which is conducive for, that equity and that parity that we're talking about. So embracing that and embracing not only the social and physical form of gender diversity, but embracing that essence of masculine and feminine and that yin and yang, and actually appreciating the complementarity of it. So I think that's what will bridge the gender divide.
Thanks a lot, Mukta, for a very insightful conversation. And I'm sure the listeners are going to take a lot of learnings from this conversation.
Soham, this has been a wonderful session with you, and thank you for your very interesting questions. Do follow me on LinkedIn and my blog, and I shall see you soon on Leadership in Shorts.